protect public safety, rebuild our economy, and make our city more livable for people in the city. And that's the focus. Those were the priorities as we went through our budget. The fiscal year 2025 executive budget is balanced at $111.6 billion. 24 and 25 remain balanced. Budget totals $114.5 billion for fiscal year 24, and fiscal year 25 is $111.6 billion. Out year gaps are $5.5 billion in fiscal year 26, the same in 27, and 5.7 in year 28. Our mission was clear: continue to balance the budget by law. 24 and 25 maintain many critical DOE programs that were funded by expiring stimulus funds, and this is something that we really need to focus on. The real challenge we had coming into office in 2022 was sunsetting programs. We had to start early to say that these programs are going to sunset in 24 completely. And also, we had to look at the realization that we had just about all of our union contracts were outstanding. Some of them as far back as 13 years, such as the ferry boat operators. And to add to that, out of nowhere, we got the asylum seekers, 191,000. And so that created a real crisis. If we didn't start early with our pegs, we would have a challenging time. We had a $7.2 billion in the budgets. We saved $7.2 billion in our using our pegs, which really helped us through. So we just want to give you an overview, but you could read through all of this. Jacques, you gave them all books, right? You gave them to them early. So you're gonna read through all. You probably read through much of it already. So why don't you just kick the questions? How's that, Katie? Yeah, start with Katie. You know that.
I wanted to ask, I know that you were praising the restoration of some of the cultural funds, but I know there's been a lot of reporting around this. It doesn't restore the $58 million or more than $58 million to the city's 3 library systems, which means most libraries around the city are now open 5 days a week. That's worse than the baseline of 6 days a week that was established in 2015. Why wasn't this funding restored? And then I have an additional question about some of the funding decrease from the Department for the Aging.
One, we're not cutting in libraries in this budget. And two, which we have stated over and over again, we did not tell libraries to close on Sundays, like we did with many of our agencies. We gave them with the PEGS amount. They did an analysis of what services they wanted to deliver to New Yorkers, and they had the options of finding where they wanted to find those savings. And I keep saying over and over again, all of us had to dig deeper. Some of our libraries have substantial endowments. One of them, they have a $1 billion endowment. This is the time to say, as we help New Yorkers get through this unprecedented humanitarian crisis, we all should be stepping up in any way that's possible. But we're clear, no cuts in this budget. Everyone had to reach a peg. And those who had to reach the peg, they came up with the ways how they wanted to do so.
I answered about the restoration. Is there $58.3 million was not restored? And I know you said this is the peg they were given, this is what they decided to do. And I know a lot of times with endowments, there's restrictions on how the money can be spent. Some stuff is allocated for certain things. The 3 library systems, Brooklyn, Queens, and New York, say that the cuts to that they were not restored. Not only did they not have 7-day-a-week library service, they only do 5-day-a-week library service. So I guess what's your message? That's been an issue that's really resonated with New Yorkers. They've been very critical of you. Even Miss Rachel, famous among toddlers, has been critical of the cuts, or at least the restoration of cuts. So what's your message if you're going to push it back on the libraries, knowing that they count on a lot of city funding to keep their employees at the libraries and to keep them even open? What's your message if you're just going to say it's up to the libraries?
My message is it's my role as the mayor for people to criticize. I have to navigate us through crises. Not one crisis we navigated through. We navigated through COVID, and we navigated through migrants and asylum seekers. There's not one savings we found that we wanted to do. We had to navigate us through. And I think retrospectively, people will see how we did a good job in doing so.
Well, my second question was about the Department for the Aging. There's significant cuts to that agency. A lot of it was safe funding. Do you have an explanation as to some of those cuts?
I'm sorry?
For the Department of the for the Aging, Senior Services, there were significant cuts I just saw in the executive budget. Some of it came from state money, but you have details on where those cuts were from and the reason for those cuts?
Yeah, what we wanted to focus on Department of Aging is to look at the at-home deliveries. We sat down and spoke with the Commissioner Cortez Vasquez and say, where could we minimize the pain and cuts in the Department of Aging, and even in our town halls, we heard directly from Department of Aging. All this is part of the negotiation process as we sit down with the City Council on where we can find and how we can continue the movement shifting of money. You want to add to anything on that, John?
There's going to be a technical briefing after, and we could go over the detail. As like you said, a lot of it's coming from state. Okay, so we'll discuss with you exactly what's going on. Okay.
Please ask that article. What's with that article? Come on. Go ahead.
Which one?
Right.
So two of the issues you've talked about that have been a part of your agenda, saying combating crime and making New Yorkers feel safe in the city, has been mental health programs and combating recidivism. So what here in the budget have you invested in? What kind of programs are you seeing in here that will help combat those two things? Rampant recidivism and the mental health issue that you've been talking about that has been an issue driving random acts of violence and stuff like that. And also, a reason why we were told that the CCRB chair, Arbor Rice, was pushed out was because she was not closing enough CCRB cases. It's budget. It's budget related.
Finish the question, and you know, I want to correct you. No one was pushed out, and we're here to talk about the $111 billion budget that we're passing. If you have a question on that, we will answer.
I do, because that was the reason why we were told that she was pushed out, but she had asked for $15 million, which she said that would help alleviate the backlog of those things because of all the strings that they've had in CCRB.
Not true. Okay.
Yes, I saw that in the budget, there's funding for City FAPS, the voucher rental program. I wanted to know, to that baseline, does that include some of the changes that the City Council made to City FAPS voucher program, expanding it to other people? And I also wanted to know, this is probably a question for Jacques, why your revenue projections are different from what the council has. They're much lower. You have, I think, a little more than $600 million for FY24. They have over $1 billion, and then in FY25, you have just a little bit less than they do. Can you tell us why that's such a significant change?
First?
Yeah.
Let's start with the revenue forecast. Based on where we are in the fiscal year and how much money we're seeing coming, we don't believe we could get to the council forecast for fiscal year 24. Again, as you know, we tend to be extremely cautious in our approach in terms of forecast. As I said to folks all the time, we are making long-term decisions about spending based on an economy that fluctuates up and down, okay? So therefore, we have to be very cautious in terms of our forecast. But again, for fiscal year 24, I can't get to the numbers based on where we are because we have about like 2.5 months left in a year. So, you know, it's a question best for them to answer.
And then on the City FAPS, that baseline funding, is that going towards any of the changes that the City Council had made to the program?
This is the underlying program. This is the underlying program we currently have. We're adding some significant amount of money in this program. It's about $300 million more than we spent last year. It's about over $800 million. Okay, that is the baseline program. For the rest, it's in the court system, so we have to let the court system deal with the issues that are involved.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I had two questions for you and the budget director. Could you clarify, you mentioned twice in your speech that everyone who wants a early childhood education seat can have one. Do you mean that you are restoring the planned expansion that was in, I think it was taken out of a peg? Is that coming back, or are you getting at this another way? And I was also curious if you could talk about the borough-based jails. It looks like there's around $4 to $5 billion more in the capital budget. Could you talk about like any changes to that and how you're going to go about completing it?
First, the child care. The biggest issue we saw when we got into office is that it became almost a bumper sticker slogan of how many seats we had. When we dug into it, we were celebrating seats and not children in seats. It's unimaginable, 23,000 vacant seats that these taxpayers are paying for, and children are not in those seats. And we're seeing that in areas where where they need the seats, the outreach wasn't there. So we partnering with the city council about $5 million where we're going to go in and sell the product. That is our goal, selling the product and allowing to fill those seats. Every child, and I said it 3 times, every child that wants a seat will have access to a seat. Every child that wants a seat will have access to a seat. But we have to make sure we're right-sizing. It was not right-sized. We were just celebrating the number of seats. A borough-based jail, the price tag, it has gone up in an unbelievable manner. The Manhattan initiative, that Manhattan borough-based jail, the builder pulled out. We have to find a builder. We lost 2 years because of COVID. The cost has increased substantially. That's why we were fighting to get the debt ceiling raised. And so the additional dollar amount is really the adjustment on the cost of building a borough-based jail.
Just a quick follow-up.
Yes.
Is there any update on how you and the council are working to house the population that really won't fit into the size of these jails?
We had a meeting 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago with the speaker and her team to do an analysis, because all of us, we have the same mission of closing Rikers Island, but we thought it was imperative to bring our team in with her team to show that, number one, the 4 jails would not fill the current population. So we have to come up with a plan. How are we going to deal with that new population? How do we get the jails built? The timetable that was set, and we're going to continue to coordinate with them and the Littman Commission so that we can understand the realities of the vision of closing Rikers Island.
Thank you. Just to clarify something on Katie's question about the libraries, and maybe you, Budget Director, can also help out just so I understand it correctly. There was a November PEG cut, $22 million. That's not getting reversed as part of the executive, right? No. And then there was, I believe, another reduction of $36 million in the January plan. That's not getting reversed either, right? So
There was no cut in the general plan. We're talking about last November.
last November.
Last year. There was one last year, and there was one in November. There was none in the general plan. Okay, and there is none in this plan.
Reduction as compared to that
Yep.
to November is 58.3.
About, yes.
So what I'm wondering, with that being the case, the new NYPD classes cost, what was it, $62 million, I think. And Mr. Mayor, if you could chime in a little bit on how your decision-making went there, since we're talking about the same dollar figure. Why is it more important to put that money into NYPD hires as opposed to putting some of it into library funding, given that the libraries say that they're going to have to go down to 5 days because of this cost?
Tough choices. The prerequisite to prosperity is public safety. People that go to libraries, I want them to get there safely. We have a real recidivism problem where a small number of people are creating a high level of violence in our city. We have a quality of life issue that we continue to fight, to maintain. We saw instantly when we surged 1,000 officers in our subway system, we saw that January bump decrease, February and March, the numbers went down. I'm not going to do anything in this city that's going to impact on public safety, and we have to make these tough decisions.
Hey, Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I actually had a technical question about the asylum seeker costs. So the 2.4 billion that you're getting from the state, is that the reason why it's being reduced, or are you attributing that to the PEG as well?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
The 2.4 billion that you're getting from all the
Okay.
for asylum seeker costs, is that why the reductions are happening for that, or are you attributing that to the PEGs?
No, the goal was to decrease the cost of the migrants and asylum seekers by 30%. That was the goal. We are successfully doing that, bringing down the number and the amount that's cost across the board. And it's just, cuts across the board. We want to lower the per diem cost, how much it costs per day, from housing to food to security, all of those items, and we're bringing down the population. So that was a combination. That's why our 30-day program was crucial to have people go on with their journey. And so when we were facing this, almost a $7 billion budget gap, we knew we had to balance the budget required by law. We knew we had to do it by bringing down that cost. You add that with the $7 billion we saved by finding savings within our agencies, that allowed us to get where we are right now. Hold on.
Are you
Yeah.
satisfied with the amount that you got from the state for asylum seekers?
The amount that we receive. Yeah, after we have some huge W, we always want more. We believe that the federal government right now think they contribute 130 or 38 million, 138
something. 196 right now.
196 million of a $4 billion price tag, but the state has stepped up. And we really thank the governor, the speaker, and the majority leader for doing so.
Two questions.
Yes.
One, if you could, on the per diem rate for the asylum seekers, it seems like you have effectively lowered the daily rate per household by several dollars. Could you walk us through how that happened, actually? Was it, did you renegotiate hotel contracts? Was it food spending? And then second question, I think Kelly asked about the difference between the administration's tax revenue estimates and the council's, but what about the significant difference between the administration's estimates of revenue now and what you were estimating last fall? There's such a huge jump in what you're actually getting. What accounts for that?
And so let me deal with the first part of your question. The asylum. Actually, I want to deal with the asylum part. The different in jumps. We have to be extremely conservative. We can't get it wrong. We say this over and over again. And we were faced with several unknowns. It was expected to have over 100,000 people that were going to be in our care. The numbers, actually, we got 181,000. So if we didn't put in place these initiatives to bring down that population, we would have been in trouble. And we saw we were not getting help from the federal government, so Camille and their team put in place with Deputy Mayor Williams-Ison, put in place with how do we decrease our population. Then when you have an emergency, it's like I use the analogy, if you get a burst pipe in your basement at 3 a.m. in the morning, that plumber that's going to come there, he's going to charge you an emergency 3 a.m. in the morning rate. We were building a shelter system while getting, in some weeks, 4,000 people a week. And we had to build that system, and many of those vendors, they treated us just that. This is an emergency. You asking us to empty our hotels. You asking us to come up with food overnight. You asking us to put a security detail in place. Now we're at the point where we're going back and we're renegotiating those contracts. We're looking at everything from security contracts to food contracts to hotel stays. We're looking at everything to cleaning and saying we want to come back to the table and get these rates down. And our team has successfully looked at every aspect of service delivery and finding a cheaper way to do so.
Do you actually have renegotiated some contracts to lower rates, or that's what you anticipate doing?
Yeah, Camille?
Yes, we have, and when we continue to do that. So starting with the hotels, some of them we have the opportunity to go back to the hotels before the leases actually expire, so we're doing that. We have been combing through all of the service models for all of our locations and we'll continue to do that work going forward.
And regarding the forecast, as you remember, last year everyone was calling for a recession because of Federal Reserve raising interest rate 11 consecutive times last year. So at the time, our forecast, okay, we anticipated a recession. So there was no recession. Because there was no recession, okay, so we have better than anticipated tax revenues. But let's be careful here, because this is a point that is very important. Our tax revenues from year to year has not increased significantly. Okay, it's 0.3% we're forecasting fiscal year 24 is going to end over fiscal year 23. What saved the day, it was because of our conservative forecast. Okay, our tax revenues are better than we anticipated, but not because we have a significant growth, okay, in terms of growth in tax revenues.
Right. The save the day key issues that saved the day for us. The reason we're having this conversation right now, being able to restore many areas and not having to do a third peg. We started out in 2022 saying there's uncertainties that lies ahead. We have to find efficiencies in our agencies. We said we don't want any layoffs, no tax increases on middle working class New Yorkers. And we were able to decrease the population of our asylum seekers, bring down the cost. This is fiscal management that allowed us to get through two real crises in the city. And with Jock and his team over at OMB, in combination with Camille and her team, what they have done allowed us to get to where we are right now. And we took a lot of heat because we were making these right decisions, but those who are professionals looked at what we've done and said they are making these tough choices.
Mayor, on the pre-K question, some advocates feel that there have been earlier cuts to the program, so they wonder if your promise of every child being able to get a seat, will the city actually be able to fulfill that in a way where, you know, child doesn't have to travel a long way to get a pre-K seat, for example. My second question is on the Citizens Budget Commission, which is a pretty hawkish budget agency. They said your, projections were unusually conservative. So I'm wondering if you could speak to that. Like, why were the cuts so conservative that even, a hawkish budget group said that maybe you were being too cautious? And I'm wondering on Ms. Rice, could you just expand in the interest of not waiting till Tuesday on what you mean when you said she was not pushed out?
We're sticking on.
Yeah. Okay. The first of projections, we cannot emphasize enough what we saw, Jock and his team saw of the uncertainties that were in front of us. And we traditionally, as long as I can remember, OMBs, they're always conservative in the numbers because of the unexpected realities. A lot of people see how much you have and they respond, but why don't you just spend? If we would have followed that mindset, no one saw the uncertainties of 191,000 people coming into our city. While we have record levels in our emergency funds, because we knew we had to be fiscally prudent. And other organizations and other entities, they could make an error. I cannot emphasize enough, we cannot make an error. And that is what we are faced with. And I would rather be here saying we can give back than being here saying we're going to take away. That's what I would rather be here doing. And we're here because we made those smart decisions in the beginning of finding savings, bringing down the cost of asylum seekers. We're here to say we're giving back. And Fabian, you owe me $1 because I told you even if I say 3 times that everyone that has access to a seat will get a seat, they're going to still ask the question, so I want my $1 back. Everyone that wants a seat will have access to a seat. I can't say, I said that 3 times.
I asked, would you have to, would a child have to travel across town?
Everyone who wants a seat would have access to a seat. And we're not going to put someone on the E train and send them all the way out to South Jamaica, Queens, if they live in Manhattan. We're going to be accommodating, as we always have been, to make sure that these children are getting that early childhood education. So everyone that wants a seat will have access to a seat. But we got to get it right. I can't have 23,000 vacant seats. That makes no sense. That's wrong for taxpayers' dollars, and that is not fiscally prudent. 23,000 vacant seats. That's not problematic to folks. That's problematic to me. I'm not going to run around the city and says, hey, I have an early childhood program just because it's a good soundbite. No, I need children in seats, and we're spending $5 million to educate parents on why it's important.
Ms. Rice? Or Ms. Rice?
Then you didn't hear? No, I didn't. The question was asked inappropriately, and I told her that's not what we're here for. We're talking about a $111 billion budget.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. One more on pre-K, early childhood education. You emphasized today quite adamantly that every child that wants a pre-K seat will have access to one. I understand city officials committed $92 million, I believe, to expand pre-K next fiscal year, but funding wasn't guaranteed beyond that in the ongoing fiscal year. So has that changed? Can you make that same promise about every child having a seat in the coming years? And then secondly, what does the funding breakdown look like between city and state dollars in terms of, say, the same public school programs that were funded with fiscal dollars?
Every child that wants a seat would have access to the seat. You want to do a breakdown, John?
Yes. We, in the out years, as you can imagine, we have not only the migrant crisis we have to manage, we had about $1.5 billion of fiscal stimulus hole that we have to backfill. We don't have resources to do all of it all at once, okay? It's a process. We are working to identify resources wherever we find them, so we could basically make sure that these programs are saved, okay? And as we go through the process, if we find additional resources, we'll baseline resources for the 3K in the out years. But again, as I said, it's a challenge, okay? It's $1.5 billion, remember that we have to find resources to backfill without a new revenue stream. So, it's a process. As we identify resources, we will make commitment, but our commitment is to make sure that these programs are saved.
We had the total was $1.5 billion in these stimulus cliffs.
Yep.
$1.5 billion. How do you put in $1.5 billion of temporary dollars into permanent programs? I mean, we should be asking that question. We had to look at these programs, summarizing pre-K, all of these programs. We had to go and say, okay, how do we fund this stuff? This was a Herculean task, and we were smart enough to start out early to fill these. The $92 million that was part of the cliff that we had to put
Yes.
in. These were real tough decisions to make, and there's no joy in making them, but we had to make them. And experts looked at them, and if you look at what experts are saying, this administration made those tough choices. And that's why we're sitting here today, because we're making these tough choices. We did the 30-day program for single adults. That is one of the most significant reasons we brought down the cost of migrants and asylum seekers. And we were brutally criticized for it, but people have gone on with their lives. Over 65% are self-sustaining and going to their final destination. That's what we had to do. We had to make these tough decisions, and we did. And that's why we're sitting here today.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering if there's any money in the budget for like any new public safety initiatives. I know you guys were talking about like the subway, gun detectors, or anything like that. Is there any money set aside for that? And then just wondering like the exact number you guys want to spend on migrants in 2025. And I know some people in the past have talked about how all that money should be coming from the state. So just wondering, just again, kind of like what your feelings are on spending this.
We're always looking for cities, manufacturers to give us pilot projects. So we're always looking for free ways to do it. But innovation is going to be part of our private sector. I mean, part of our public safety apparatus. We got some new stuff we're going to roll out. And as we roll it out, we'll make an announcement That's the goal. Jacques, you want to get up? A second?
Yeah, the asylum seeker for 25 is about $4.7 billion we're forecasting right now. Again, we are very thankful for what the governor has provided us and the state has provided us. And we'll continue to work with the state, in coming years to see, how we're going to keep this funded. This is a very, very expensive program for us.
Okay, Jacques. Oh, no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Do you feel like it's up to the city, though, to have to pay for this? I mean, at the end, I know we want the federal government to pay for it, but should the state be, shouldering more than half?
We will always like more, but I said it before, and I cannot say it enough how much I appreciate the governor and the majority leader and the speaker. The things they gave us around cannabis enforcement, around raising our debt capacity, housing. What the governor has just been a partner, from public safety. Every time I reach out to her, she really dug into making sure she knew what we were going through. And this is what the federal government should be doing. You cannot always give what an individual wants in a particular area, but there's other places you can do it. And that's what the governor did. The governor said, we may not be able to give you everything you want in this area, but here's some other ways we could help you. We could help you with the mayoral accountability. We could help you with making it easy for you to build housing. We could help you with getting cannabis off. That is what it's about, and that's what help that we need. So Jock is going to be giving a technical briefing later. It may be the most challenging thing to understand, but I have to bounce. I got a full day. I have a full day. I have a lot to do.
Yep.
And Jock is going to spend a whole lot of time with you. He says there's nothing he enjoyed more than on budget day that he's able to just share the company of you, Katie, and Chris. It's just a warm feeling to just be in a room with all of you. And so he will enjoy this so much.
Yeah, thank you.